Our guest today is the biggest name in aviation content creators, an author, TEDx speaker, and an amazing educator. He flies Queen of the Skies Boeing 747 for a living. He has knowingly or unknowingly contributed to aviation careers of thousands of pilots, if not tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands. He's a pioneer, he's a legend. Welcome back to Pilot Podcast, India's #1 podcast for pilots. Thank you for viewing, watching, and subscribing. Today, we have a special guest. Honestly, I'm personally a fan. When I was preparing for my airline career and pilot career, he was the go-to and she was the go-to. So I'm here with two persons that have helped me in my career a lot. He doesn't require any introduction, to be honest. Just his name is enough. But I'll still do a formal introduction. Our guest today is the biggest name in aviation content creators, an author, TEDx speaker, and an amazing educator. He flies Queen of the Skies Boeing 747 for a living. He has knowingly or unknowingly contributed to aviation careers of thousands of pilots, if not tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands. He's a pioneer, he's a legend, he's Captain Joe. Let's go.
Thank you so much. Namaste.
Honestly, we are absolutely honored to have you on board with us at Pilot Podcast today, Captain.
Thank you.
And yes, whenever I also search for any kind of aviation content, and your name used to be the first one everywhere, and with so many subscribers, with about 1.6 million subscribers on YouTube, and world's #1 pilot channel on YouTube. We are honored to have you on board.
Thank you. It's an honor. It's an honor for me as well, because India, surprisingly, is a huge country, but it's also one of my largest followings. It's from India, so I really feel honored to be on the podcast today. Thank you.
Absolutely, Captain. Absolutely. Matter of the fact, this is so much actually personal to me. So Capt.Neha is my sister, and she has always helped me in my career. But anytime whenever I was preparing for my cadet pilot assessments and everything, YouTube was the best friend, and you were virtually the best friend, Captain. That's what it was. So I'm honestly starstruck today, and not only starstruck, but the value that you have provided to the aviation world is beyond imagination.
Absolutely.
Thank you. It really means a lot, these words coming from you. I mean, for me, I still gain a lot of motivation from doing these kind of videos. First and foremost, because it keeps me in the books, right? I still have to, go through the material myself. I have to read up on the stuff. And this is what I think, my mantra is, a good pilot is always learning. And I think my YouTube channel makes myself a good pilot because I'm constantly striving to become better, be in the books, study and learn and prepare. And if I can give that back to the future pilots, I'm more than happy to. So I'm really happy to hear that it's a lot of help.
Thank you so much. We were looking forward to this day to have with you for some time. And yes, we are.
And Captain, you honestly started creating content when nobody else was creating.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a long time ago, and I think it's actually a really nice story as well, because how I got into it is that I had always sort of a schedule from 5 days flying and then 4 or 5 days off again. And for me, during those 5 days where I had off, I wanted to do something with my free time. And one day I was flying, and we had I had a long turnaround, and my dad called me on his phone, and he said, "Hey Joe, I'm reading a newspaper article. I don't really understand it. Can you explain what the journalist is trying to explain here?" And I said, "Yeah, sure." So I took it on FaceTime, and I walked around the aircraft with my dad and explained it and showed him all the things. And that sort of resulted 2 weeks later into a really nice conversation with my father, where he said, "Hey, why don't you start a YouTube channel? I think your passengers could be really interested in the stuff that you've been showing me. Maybe this is something, your passengers want to see." So, and that sort of started the creation of my YouTube channel.
Yes. Correct. And thank you for doing that.
Absolutely. I've read it in the preface of your Read and Do book.
Yeah, okay.
Mentioned.
I just saw it. Okay, yeah.
Yes, you mentioned this.
Nice.
Yes. So even we do this to help aspiring pilots in India. And this channel is to bring awareness about the field, and anyone who wants to become a pilot, they watch this podcast and gain some information from it. Capt.Neha has an academy called CNTAA, the Pilot Ground School, where she teaches for the DGCA exams. And as we know that you are coming up with some valuable content. We'll get to that in the later part of the podcast, definitely. Yes, so let's start. Captain, so starting from the scratch, like how did you, in your childhood, how did you decide to become a pilot? And what was that feeling like that when you knew to yourself that this is what I want to do for my career?
Yeah, so it kind of all started off when I was a very young child. My godfather used to be an air traffic controller in Heathrow. And he took me, I was allowed to observe what he was doing, his job, and it was really amazing to see. And then after his shift, he took me to the end of the runway in Heathrow, and that was the times where Concorde was still flying. So I actually got to witness Concorde taking off right next to me, and that, my entire body was like vibrating from the noise, and it was such an exhilarating feeling. But that wasn't actually the thing that led me into aviation. I got a passion for it at that time.
Right.
But then I started, like 10 years later, I was allowed to fly in a small little biplane, a double-decker plane, where you as the passenger actually sit in front and the pilot sits in the back. And then so I had this unobstructed view of like to the outside, and it was just like perfect weather, the sunset, just like the perfect scenery. And just after a couple of minutes of flying, my pilot in the back said, "Hey Joe, do you want to take control?" And so I just I moved the stick left to right. I could feel being in control of this small little plane, and that feeling is just so undescribable. And from that point on, it's just been a progression towards this pilot career that I have now, and I feel very, very blessed to have achieved what I wanted to achieve. Flying the 747 is an absolute dream come true with a really, really great company. And so from that point on, from that small little biplane to the Queen of the Skies, it's been 15 years roughly.
That's right.
So you started I read on your website that you started in 2006, right?
Yeah, we're training 2006, yeah.
Yeah, even she started at that time, and 2008 she got her CPL, and afterwards rest is the...
Yes, so after CPL, then there were job opportunities were not there because of recession.
2008, right?
2008.
Yeah, same with me.
Yeah. So I started teaching and training aspiring pilots for their CPL and TPL. So that's how the journey of training aspiring pilots started. And thereafter got a job in an airline, one of the India's largest carrier. And in that started flying as a first officer. And followed by that, in 2019 became a captain. So 2015 I joined, 2019 became a captain, and since then I'm flying as a captain on Airbus 320. Yeah, I have been on one aircraft itself, not on wide bodies. Yes, it's a absolutely different experience and feeling to fly on wide bodies. Maybe sometime in future if I get an opportunity.
Good. Well, but the A320 is a beautiful aircraft. I used to fly the A320 and I love it. I think it's such a great plane. And at the end of the day, when I'm very grateful to be flying the 747, but this is going to maybe sound a little bit demotivating. But at the end of the day, it's an aircraft. Just be happy that you have a job on any type of aircraft. Build your hours, gain your hours, and maybe then get to the wide body. But if you're on a wide body for like I've been on the wide body now for 6 years, and yes, I love it. It's great to fly. It's a fantastic plane. But, there are other aspects like on an Airbus that I prefer a little bit more than I do on a Boeing. So there's differences. At the end of the day, just be happy that you have a job, wings and a couple of engines that get you into the sky. So from that point of view.
In terms of switching the airplanes, so maybe you can talk her into doing that someday.
Well, to be fair, it's not something, a lot of people are worried too much about the type rating. And to be quite honest, this is my second type rating. Well, technically my third type rating because I did a King Air, well, it's not really a rating, but long story short, what I'm trying to say is that you kind of get a feel for the systems and they are more or less somewhat the same. You always see the reliability aspect. If one system fails, you need to have this redundancy. So it's the only thing that really changes is the manual flying skills, I think.
Yeah.
Maybe your head calculations for the descent, but other than that, I think it's great. Change is great because it absolutely puts you into the book again. So you have to study and learn. So from that point of view, I'm looking forward that you get on so wide body at some point.
Right.
Absolutely. Captain, we'll look forward to actually having you in India, in Mumbai. And someday we'll catch up and do a podcast in real as well. Okay, that is, yeah, for sure. And so I'm sorry I didn't introduce myself. I'm Nilay Thakare. I'm a junior first officer. So I just finished my type rating. I'm under airline training right now. Okay.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Well, congrats. Amazing. Good times ahead.
So yeah, I'm also part of the same airline, one of India's biggest airline. That's how it is. Okay. So
shall I ask you some questions about
Please go ahead.
differences? So how can you describe the different European license process? Like, is it like same for entire EASA countries, or is it different for every individual country under Europe?
In Europe, it's
What
all
is the
about
process?
among Europe, it's all within the EASA authorities, and from that is really, really nice because that has only changed, I think, like 10 years ago, roughly, where everything was taken over by the EASA, and they kind of made it uniform. So everything is more or less the same. So if you wanted to get your private pilot license, for example, in the past you could do 35 hours in Austria, and that was fine. Now you have to do 40 hours in Germany, but now it's all regulated to one system, let's put it that way, or unity that is all the same for the entire European country, which I think is fantastic. That there's no more confusion now. There are still, because now that I've done this course, or I prepared for this course, I realized that there are still differences between the FAA, the Canadians, and the Australians, but it's very, very similar. I mean, it's a couple of hours here and there, back and forth, but at the end of the day, a PPL or a CPL can be done in, let's say, 200 to 250 hours with your commercial pilot license. So I think that is great that they also have put this into place. So I'm very happy about that. That's good.
That's great.
that's great.
Whereas here in India, it's about it's 200 hours, which is minimum required in order to get Indian CPL. Followed by that, in that there are certain requirements of 100 hours of pilot in command PIC.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Yeah.
There are certain night flying hours, then cross-country flight time, and all
Yeah.
as well as the check rides. Yeah.
We have the same here, obviously, in Europe. I don't nail me on the exact hours right now.
No, don't worry about
It's all it's in my course that you know exactly how many hours you have to have. But yet again, it's very, very similar.
Absolutely.
5 night hours here or 10 hours night hours there. It just cut in a day as long as
Correct.
So it's as per student pilot license, then private pilot, then instrument, then commercial. That's how it is, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Okay. Yeah. In India, it's a bit slightly different. People can go directly from SPL to CPL. So they need not do PPL. That's not a mandatory requirement.
Oh, no, that's still mandatory.
Yeah, right.
In India.
So, Captain, where did you do your flying from? Where was it?
Well, surprisingly, I did my PPL. I did in Austria, which is just around. It was around the corner where my parents live. And then for all my CPL, IFR, ATPL flying, I did all of that in the United States. So I did my theory in Germany, all in like one big block. I think it was nearly like a year, roughly, just in theory. And then we went over to the States for 6 to 8 months, and we just like bashed it all through, and we got all the hours we needed. We were flying every single day. It was crazy. And the other thing was also what I enjoyed so much about it was because we flew in Florida and the weather was so good in Florida.
Yeah.
You couldn't do any proper IFR flying, so we were wearing the foggles all the time.
Yeah.
He's studied in Florida as well.
Yeah, I did. I
Yeah?
recently did my flying from Florida. I was in L3 Harris,
L3 Harris,
the one in Sanford. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Yep. That's how it is. Awesome. So in Europe, for any aspiring pilot to get a job in an airline, is ATPL required, or they can apply right after CPL? How is it, Captain?
Yeah, so with the wanting to fly for the airlines, meaning,
All right.
and you therefore would need an airline transport pilot license, you can, obviously with a CPL IFR, you can apply to quite a few jobs within Europe. But a lot of things have changed now that it is a mandatory requirement, or has become a mandatory requirement for most of the airlines where you fly, like, for example, an Airbus A320 or any low-cost carrier within Europe. They will want you to have an ATPL. That's mandatory nowadays. For example, just a funny incident. I did my CPL IFR and I had my theory ATPL, and I flew with my CPL IFR an Airbus A320, but I then had to do an ATPL check in the aircraft. I think it was like after my 1,500 hour check mark. So that still hasn't changed. You still have to have your ATPL to apply, and then at some point it's still a frozen ATPL. Then you do your 1,500, and then it converts to an ATPL.
So how a student from a commercial pilot license of 200 to 250 hours gain those extra hours up to 1,500 hours?
Well, this is the good thing, that in Europe, most of the airlines allow you already to apply with very, very low hours. So a lot of them actually already accept you with 200 to 250 hours. If you, for example, do not get in for whatever reason, and they say, okay, you do need 1,000 hours, then there are still opportunities that you could fly for regional carriers in terms of like an ATR or a Q400. There's all sorts of little operators or even private operators where you could apply to. There are a lot of opportunities. I have to admit that in the UK, the job opportunities are very high, much higher than they are, for example, in Germany, because the aviation sector in the UK is just much bigger. So those are, there are ways, but you don't necessarily need 1,500 hours for any airline within Europe. So that's
Understood. So far, at least right now in India, it's like right after CPL, you can get into an airline. Yeah, but first 1,000 hours, the person is junior first officer.
Yeah.
And
okay.
yeah, there are training and checks before the line release as well. No doubt about that. But at least right now, yeah, 200 hours, 250 hours is what it takes in India. So
Thanks, yeah.
right now it's a little bit faster, but I don't know how long it'll remain to be like that. Probably that might change. That is, yeah.
Yeah, but I think India has an incredible aviation sector. I mean, you guys are exploding over there. Everything's growing and growing and growing. So I think at some point they are going to have to lower these, hour requirements to get into the airlines, because otherwise they have no pilots. So at that point,
Absolutely, that is true. Okay, Captain. So let's get to a little bit relevant to the aspiring pilots, the pilots that are deciding to get into aviation career or things like that. So the person might be in junior high school or maybe senior high or finishing graduation and willing to switch careers to aviation, something like that. So in that perspective, what would be the first step and what would be the consideration that you would suggest them to take right now?
Okay. So for me, what I think is so overwhelming when wanting to become a pilot is your first thing that you do. You go into Google and you probably type in how to become a pilot, right? That's sort of like the keyword search you could do. Yeah. Now, the thing is that I think it's overwhelming, the amount of information that you find. And especially the information is very confusing, because I just said at some countries you have to fly 40 hours, 250 hours, 200 hours. And it drives me crazy just to think about how, if someone who's a youngster who wants to become a pilot and is so overwhelmed. And then the other thing is, what we as pilots obviously love to do is use abbreviations. lose so many aviation to make everything just much more complicated and no one understands what we're talking about. So as a youngster coming from junior high or high school, whatever, they are going to be overwhelmed with all this, these abbreviations. So what I have built, or what I have done over the last 8-10 months, was that I have gathered all this information into one big online course. I wanted like a beacon to me, where people can get to and say, okay, I'm going to get this course. I will watch these 4 hours of videos that Joe has put all together, and you'll get all the information you need and a better understanding of what you need to do in order to become a pilot. I'm not giving out theory lessons. I'm not teaching you theory. I'm just showing ways on how you can prepare for flight school, how to find the right flight school. That's also a huge part of your career, finding the right flight school, because that's where you can save a lot of money as well, because a lot of flight schools, they vary their prices quite a lot. Yes. And so for me, or as the three of us know, as pilots, the best thing to be is to be prepared, because proper preparation prevents poor performance. These are the 5 C's. And so for me, that was incredibly important, that there is some kind of course where people can just get it, watch it, do a lot of math. As for example, I have 80 pages of download material where you can improve your math calculations, because you need to be relatively good at math. Yeah. So you can practice. So you can practice that. Then you need to improve your English. There's a couple of English grammar and all sorts of, and translations, all sorts of stuff is in there. You print that out, you practice at home, and then you get an understanding. Okay, this is what the flight schools or this is what the airlines are going to be expecting.
Absolutely.
And it's all in one big course.
That's awesome.
That was super important to me. Yeah, because back then when I went to flight school, I had no idea what I was doing. I mean, YouTube didn't even exist back then. Right? So we just blind walked into this and said, okay, just take my money. I mean, as long as I come out as a pilot at the end of the day, I'm happy. So I think the times have changed, and I think good preparation is the most important thing.
Absolutely.
So that's why I've put out this course.
Absolutely. Even some students that are into flight training, they are doing flight training, they most of the times do not have a proper idea about how this whole training is gonna play out.
Correct.
And after finishing their training, what that person should do. And that's great.
Yeah. I think a lot of flight schools also, they invite you to come to the flight school. Then they will tell you, okay, you need your PPL, CPL, IFR, HPL, and you're like, okay, what's all this? What does this all mean? Right? So you have absolutely no structure. You don't know what they're talking about. So I think having a rough idea of the steps that need to be taken are super, super crucial. That you don't just go into a flight school. The money's been taken out of your hand. And you just hope for the best.
Absolutely. And as we all know, this is a very expensive profession, right? One misstep can cost thousands of dollars or tens of thousands of dollars. Yeah, absolutely. It's a matter of the fact we never talk about any course except for CNTAA on this podcast, and even CNTAA we rarely talk about it. Okay, in one out of 3 podcasts we talk about it. But it's your course, and it is gonna be special. We are so certain about it. And honestly, the only YouTube channel that you have is so much value. So I can only imagine what it would be in something that is your course that you have specially curated for this purpose. It'll be definitely a structured course, I'm sure.
Yeah. And I would say that is quite required for aspiring pilots, because they come without any clue or without any prior preparation about aviation or about pilot training. So things like English is mandatory, as you are an examiner for ELP, you know it. So then apart from that, the rest of the physics and mathematics, basic mathematics, as you also know, as a pilot, what we need. So these are very, very important, because without that, it's just not possible for them to understand any of the subjects like navigation or, the sums in that. It becomes very complex for them. So,
And also one of the bigger chapters within the course is actually the medicals. A lot of people forget about the medical. I actually have an entire video on what to expect at the medical examination. Especially, I did it at the military here in Germany, which is much tougher than it is for normal civil aviation pilots. And that was great because now I have all the tests they can potentially do on you. It's not going to be all the tests, but I think the course focuses on taking the people's fear, because they go into this blindly, not knowing what they're going to expect. And the course is doing the exact opposite. It will tell you step by step, you need to do this, and then you need to do that, and then this is how you prepare. This is the maximum in maths that's going to be sort of asked of you, in physics, etc. And also ways of how to prepare for your English or improve your English. So yes, taking fear and being prepared.
Definitely. It would also be a great fit for the persons who are trying to prepare for cadet pilot assessments or something.
Absolutely.
Like that, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Because cadet pilot assessments across most of the countries are pretty much the same, I feel.
Okay.
Because most countries, I mean, at least in India, Europe, UK, those are pretty much the same, because companies like L3RS was based in UK before. Right now it is, as it has become L3 Harris, I believe their headquarters are in US. I'm not too sure about it though. But it's the same process for airlines like say or we'll bleep these names. It's the same process, because I myself have gone through those assessments. She did it in a conventional pathway. She did her CPL and then went for the airline exams.
Okay.
I did it with the cadet pilot pathway. And you both have been a great contribution in clearing those exams. Okay. All right. Captain, so how do you see the growth of aviation industry? Because that is one of the concerns for persons who are deciding to become a pilot. So what would be your view and take on that?
I mean, since I've been in aviation, which is nearly up to 15 years now, it has nothing been besides growth. It has just always been growing. Okay, the minor exception of COVID, but that was obviously a quick break of 2 years. But in general, the aviation sector is already at the peak as it was before COVID, and it's already back on an incline where it's constantly growing. The demand of pilots is just, especially like in the States that I know of, or probably very soon in India as well, is going to be so incredibly high that I purely, truthfully believe that the pilot profession is something that is always going to be seeked out on. A lot of airlines will be needing pilots in the future. So I wouldn't fear too much worrying about not finding a job. That's just my belief right now. Just being in the industry for the length I've been in, and it's always been growing. They've always been seeking pilots.
Also, there are sometimes ups and downs. Like sometimes ups and downs, and like you have been in aviation for 15 to 17 years now. 15 years, the same with her, right? And you all have seen like decades in aviation. You know how downtime in aviation looks like. You know how good times in aviation look like. In the not so good times, how do you think that aspiring pilots should approach that time, and what should they do in those times?
Okay, first of all, have a positive mindset that it is going to go up again at some point. And I also very strongly believe that the downs are shorter than the ups. So you have a down and the up is actually longer. And then you have another short down. So it's sort of a wavy up. It works its way up. But nevertheless, so during those times, let's say there's a half year to a year where the airlines are not hiring. For me, the most important thing, or that's what I always give out, is try and find some kind of job that is aviation related. I don't want you sitting on the couch doing nothing. I want you to apply to any job that is possible. Go and immerse yourself at a little airfield. Talk to the pilots that are there. I had a friend of mine, for example, she worked at the gas station for the planes, so she refueled the planes, and she also washed the planes. And she did that job for 2 weeks because she got into contact with so many pilots. Obviously someone introduced her to a job and said, or asked her, hey, could you ferry this plane from A to B? And that suddenly became her job. And now she ferries one plane to the other. So she very easily bridged that gap. But if you are sitting at home playing video games and doing nothing, this is not going to be very beneficial for your career. So you really need to expose yourself. I'm not saying, creating massive Instagram accounts, that's all good, but be, not just hiding behind the online application, but also talking to people, networking, going to events. Those are the things that during those low phases you should address and pursue on doing, because as I said, no one's going to call you at home and say, hey, we've been waiting for you all the time, where are you, here's your job. It's not going to happen that way. So just expose yourself.
Absolutely, that's great. So
it's a great advice.
Yeah, it is a great advice. It's like, get physically closer to the cockpit, get physically closer to the airplane, right? Yeah. One fine day you'll sit into it, right? That is absolutely great advice, Captain, no doubt. Yeah.
And as you are a motivational speaker to pilots, we would like to ask you, what qualities a pilot should possess?
Yeah, like you said, the attitude, right? So what kind of attitude and qualities? Yeah,
I like that question. So I very often think of myself and think of other pilots that I know. The best trait or the best character to have is actually to stay humble. Be a humble human being. Don't be arrogant. Don't be naive. Don't be thinking that you're God's gift to aviation, that you can, manage everything. That's not the case. Aviation has always, at least on my side, has always fought its way back to showcase or to tell me, Joe, you are just at this level. You want to get here, but you are just at this level. Because, for example, it's a long time ago, I did a flight into the Alps at 10,000 feet with a small little Cessna. The Cessna was firing on all cylinders, and it was really struggling to maintain altitude. And my instructor back then had a piece of paper with math questions on it, and they were really, really easy. But when we were in 10,000 feet for like half an hour, he brought out this piece of paper and showed it to me and said, hey, Joe, do those math questions. And I was struggling. Because you think that your body is so amazing and that you can overcome everything, but that's not the case. Aviation will always bring you back to that level. This is where you are, and you can't go beyond. So I think being humble and being always on the learning curve, always trying to better yourself is something a pilot should do. That, as I keep saying, a good pilot is always learning. You should never stop not going into your books, because there is always something changing. There's always, nothing should become routine. You should, whenever you flick a switch in the cockpit, you should always have that split second where you think, am I doing the right thing? Not just voluntarily do it.
Yeah.
Really be careful, or just be humble, be mindful about the things that you do. Those are sort of traits I think a pilot should have.
Because attitude is one of the very important consideration and aspect that an aspiring pilot must look after and consider. Because like someone gets private and gets solo, 100 hours experience, the person knows how to fly a 172 okay now, but has not faced any emergency or anything like that, and the person feels like, okay, I'm the macho pilot, I know everything, right?
You have a lot of that.
It's like new skill and low experience. It is a bad combination for sure.
But the best preparation for, as you said, haven't had an emergency yet. So chair flying is, for example, I have a simulator check coming up in a couple of days, right? So I am literally sitting in this chair. I have my checklist in front of me, and I am flicking imaginary switches just to get the muscle memory, to know what I'm doing. And this is something, especially a low-hour pilot, they should be doing that every single day, because that engine failure, God forbid, but it could happen at any moment in time. And if you are so in shock or startled, and you have no idea what to do in that moment. That is probably, a life and death situation. So
Absolutely.
if you prepare well, you do your chair flying, and or someone wakes up in the middle of the night and you have to repeat the memory item, that's a good pilot if you can do that.
Absolutely. Yep, I saw your video in which you explained the startle effect.
The startle effect.
And yeah, that was great.
I would like to ask you, according to you, in your opinion, what aircraft would you recommend the aspiring pilots to start with?
Do you mean in training or when they have an opportunity to go to the air?
After they are done with CPL and they want to go for an airline, they ask me what type rating they should do, Boeing or Airbus?
Okay, I think, but just personally saying, I think the 737 is a great aircraft to come out of flight school because it is very manual flying, let's say, or you still have that input, you feel what you're actually doing with the aircraft. Also, the throttles are the way is much longer than it is on an Airbus A320 because the conversion from, or the type rating from a 737 to an Airbus is, in my opinion, easier than it is the other way around. Because I started with, obviously, manual planes, Cessnas and Pipers, whatever, and then I transitioned over to the Airbus straight away. And that was challenging for me at first because I couldn't really deal with the side stick. I had troubles at the beginning. But then you get used to it, and then it's, just becomes a habit. You just really, really enjoy it. But a funny story is when I transitioned from the A320 to the 747, I was so concerned because I hadn't used a trim. I hadn't used trim in 8 years. So I said, oh my God, I need to take a simulator, just for like 2 hours to see if I can still trim. And I kid you not, I got into the simulator, we took off, and I could immediately feel the pressure on the yoke, and I immediately trimmed in the right direction. So this is, that transition is much easier coming from Airbus to Boeing. But the other way around, I believe, can be a little bit tricky. Yeah. So from that standpoint, I would wish for a student to go onto the Boeing first and then onto the Airbus. But if he has the choice, then yeah, if he has the choice.
Whichever airline offers you job first.
Very true. Very true.
Like we discuss sometimes, it's like if the airline you are interviewing for has A320, then A320 is your favorite airplane. If it has 737, that is your... I mean, that might sound as a hypocrite answer, but at the same time, if someone is applying for a job and that airline has that specific airplane, it better be the favorite airplane at that point of time, right? So, in terms of flight training, which countries, as you have flown in multiple countries, right? During your flight training, you were earlier in Austria and then you went to the US. So, in your opinion, which country is better for flying?
Personally, it's not a matter of the country. I think it's a matter really of the equipment. If you have good equipment, good instructors, you can be in like terrible bad weather in the UK, but if you have a really good instructor, that makes a huge difference. But if you are in really bad weather and have a really terrible instructor, that can really not be a great situation. So I don't really believe in countries that are really good. Yeah, I believe that the material that is being used, the aircraft that are being used, and especially your flight instructor is the one that really decides or really can break it or make it with your training. So that's what I would say, because preferring countries is a bit, a bit difficult, I think.
That's true. The only point, because the reason we asked countries was the convertibility of the license.
Okay.
If someone flies from, say, EFTA, Emirates Flight Training Academy or something like that, their program of training is completely different than what other countries require to convert the license. They have only flight training until PPL, private, and then they go on simulators for 200 hours, and then they go in the airline cockpit for 1,500 hours, things like that. Now, conversion of that license becomes difficult a little bit because other countries demand different hours requirements. Like you said, Captain, that EASA, India, FAA, they almost have same flight training requirements, almost. But some countries have different ones, so that's why that was the reason I asked.
I think if you okay, let's say if you are in the UK and you want to become a pilot in the UK, I would obviously recommend that you do your training in the UK because it's very tailored towards UK aviation. The same would probably be for India. The same would be for the States. Because a lot of it is also then converting your license back to either European license or an Indian license, whatever you need. So that can cause trouble, difficulties, and then maybe. So let's say you've done 2 years of training and then you want to convert your license from a European to an Indian license, and then they'll say, oh, by the way, you need to do 5 more subjects in theory. And, your last theory exam was like a year and a half ago. You have to restudy all of that. So I kind of would try in a way avoid that and try and do the training in the country that you actually are pursuing your career. I think that maybe makes sense.
Yeah. Or maybe the country that has pretty much similar requirements, kind of, right? Like you did it from the US and then converted to EASA license, right? Yeah, that's exactly how I did. That was easy. Yeah. Yeah, that was easy for me too, actually. Yeah, flying from US and then converting to Indian license is not that difficult. Okay. Flying from India is a great choice too. She did it from India. I did it from Florida. Yeah. Yep, absolutely. So we have
question would like to ask. So during the pilot training or pilot career, so it's not always smooth sailing for anyone. Maybe there are some hurdles in between. So what challenges did you face during your pilot career? I would tell you mine also.
So for me, I definitely was struggling.
How did you work?
I was struggling at the beginning. For example, when I did the practical part in the States, I was really struggling with the heat. It was so incredibly hot, and I got really, really sick at the beginning with all the turbulence. You have all these thermals, the plane was just going up and down. And I was really at a point, I said, oh my God, I've done all the theory. I can fly a little plane because I had my PPL, but now I'm in IFI and I'm getting sick all the time. I was really struggling with that. So what my instructor did, he said, I think, Joe, we've been doing too much flying right now. I think your body really needs a break. So he just took me off the schedule for 3 days. We went to play golf. We did all sorts of other things. I just took my mind off flying entirely. And then once I got back into the plane, he made sure that I was always in the front seat, because we had a time where we'd also, as the co-pilot, you would sit in the back seat, and then you would assist your pilot in command in the front. And he said, okay, I'm trying to avoid this because when you're at the back end of the plane, the lean doesn't stop. So I got really, really sick. So after like a week or two, just sitting in the front seat and doing all the training, my body kind of sort of adapted to the turbulence. And then I was totally fine sitting in the back with my crew partner on later flights. So sometimes I think stepping away from it can really help, because you are immersed with aviation from the moment you start flight school until you have all your licenses every single day. And at some point, you just you're just completely full. You just want to do something else. So that if I have an advice, step back a little bit, meet friends and family, do something else, and then regain your confidence and get back in.
Correct.
Absolutely.
That's great. Yeah. And maintaining mental peace during the training time, because sometimes learning curve can get difficult, a little bit difficult, and not taking any rash actions or saying something that is rash and that could affect someone's pilot career in future, that must not be done. So in that, maintaining peace, what would be your suggestion? How to maintain a calm mind, because that is in cockpit required, right?
I'm totally with you. I mean, I remember that during my time, that it was incredibly difficult if there was a subject that you didn't really fully understand. You couldn't just brush over it and say, okay, it'll be fine, I'll worry about it another time. You couldn't. You had to really know what you were doing or understand the topic. So I think sometimes, I know it's difficult, but sometimes you have to give yourself some time. Everything's being so rushed and everything's just like forced into you. if I did my training in a year and a half, which was way too quick, if I would do it all over again, I would say, okay, give me 3 to 4 years over. Okay, so 3 years to finish it all, that I have more time to process it all, because my mental state during flight training was all over the place, because I was processing so much. And
Absolutely.
I think sometimes I dislike the flight schools are trying to push you through all of this. I think, give yourself some time, process all the information, and really understand what you've just learned, and not just learn it for your exam and then forget about it again. So, that's, if you have the opportunity to take it a little bit slower, that's what I would recommend. And don't worry that you're not going to find a job because everyone else is finishes faster than you have. That I wouldn't worry too much about.
True. And it's like getting it faster and getting it sooner. It's like we never get to relive the flight training phase ever again, right? That is one thing. And then it also develops a kind of thing. It's like a race with the colleagues, that colleagues are moving forward, or I'm moving forward, and that becomes then a little bit of toxic state to be in, right?
Yeah.
So even I'd feel that I'd say that it should not be that way. Take your time, get it done, but get it done. That is important, right? Yep, absolutely. All right. Now, as you time and again say that a good pilot is always learning.
Yes.
Right? So explain the emotion behind that, Captain.
Yeah.
Because you have popularized that statement on the internet. You take the credit for it. You have the credit for it. We give you the credit for it.
I just believe when you are, let's say you've managed to go all into the airline, so you're happy and you're comfortable in the Airbus A320, you're sitting there, you're doing your thing. There is a chance of a routine coming up very, very quickly, that you just sit there, you do your thing, you don't really think about too much about it anymore. You kind of get, just loosened. And for me, to be mentally in a state that you are always prepared, for example, for your sim check. I know a lot of people that they prepare like 3 days before their sim check, which is, in my opinion, way too late. So they are just like managing, barely getting through the simulator. If you do a little bit every day over a long, long period of time, you will become a master at it, in the long run. And I think that you can are far more at ease with yourself when you are in an aircraft, or when you go to your sim check. Because if you don't know what to immediately do during an engine failure on takeoff, for example, or maybe a hydraulic failure en route, and you don't really know what systems are now affected by that hydraulic system that has been failed, do you consider yourself being a good pilot? I doubt it all, so I kind of,
absolutely.
That's why I keep saying a good pilot. The important word is good. A good pilot is always learning, right? So, and that's why I emphasize this a lot. It's like, playing the piano. You constantly have to be playing and practice your piano. Otherwise, you'll just become. That's probably the best way to showcase. Because if you have a concert and you haven't practiced for it, everyone will know that you haven't practiced. And in aviation, you can hide away a little bit, because you're sitting there. You're a team player. You have another colleague. So sometimes things just get sort of lost in translation, and you sort of, just no one really realizes if you have trained or not. So that's why I believe a good pilot should always be in their books every day, a little bit, half an hour to an hour every day, and then you should be fine. You should also have that, that drive to do that. I know so many people who don't have that drive, and I kind of want everyone to be going in that right.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Very well said, Captain. Like, there is a difference between just getting by and actually being good at it. Yeah. That
Absolutely.
I mean, you'd be, whether pass or a fail, regardless of that, you'd be proud of the preparation that the person did, right? And
What is that one message in concise you would like to give to aspiring pilots?
Yes. For aspiring pilots, I would stick to that, what I said, personality-wise. I would love for everyone to be a humble person. treat it like a gift. Being a pilot or wanting to become a pilot is a wonderful job. It remains a wonderful job. Don't take it lightly. It is going to be hard at some points, but I think the rewards are huge for you. Just the experiences you get, the people you get to meet, the planes you get to fly, the countries you get to go to. It is something that I never regret that I've done. I love it until today, and I think that you should. There are moments where it's going to be a little bit tough on you, but you have to fight through them. Just stick to that passion, keep fighting for it. Because nothing that is hard comes easy. Nothing that is amazing comes easy. So just pull through, try and keep that motivation high. Maybe sometimes step 3 days, go away for 3 days, do think about something else, regain your confidence, regain your motivation, and go back into it. And also ask for help. You're not doing this by yourself. There's other people around. Your podcast is help. We're talking about aviation. So seek out help that you can find. You're not on this journey by yourself. Other people have done it, and there are a lot of pilots there who want to help. So that's the advice that we give.
Yes, you can ask help from us or Captain Joe. You can join his course or join the CNTAA course if you have. So CNTAA course is for the ones who have already decided to become a pilot and have started the process. Captain Joe's course is the onboarding basics course, correct? Am I right?
That was well said.
Yeah.
Onboarding.
Yeah.
Love it.
Even if you are deciding or contemplating whether you want to become or not, or deciding, that course will definitely help you. And once you have decided, the soft skills such as English, mathematics, physics, all those things, yes, Captain Joe has you covered. Okay. Was I right, Captain?
Yeah, that's correct. It is the best preparation to go into flight school.
Absolutely, Captain. The CNTAA is for the DGCA exam specifically, but it is a must for Indian pilots. All the Indian pilots have to clear DGCA exams. That is how it is. Okay.
Yes.
All right, Captain. It was pleasure having you. Okay.
Absolutely. I have to admit, this is my first interaction with Indian pilots. I kid you not. I've been in the aviation industry for 15 years, and this is the first time that I'm actually on a podcast with Indian pilots, and I feel absolutely this is a huge privilege, and it is an absolute goal of mine to come to Mumbai or to India next year and to give presentations. I hope that we can arrange that together.
Most invited.
That would be really lovely.
No, we'll be in touch. Okay, we'll be in touch, and let's meet up soon, Captain. As you had limited time, we'll cut it here.
Wonderful.
But there is so much more to discuss.
Oh yeah, we could go on for 3 hours more.
We can. If you have time, we can. Or maybe next episode, someday we'll do this again. And Captain, I'd like to also mention that, as you time and again say, humble. It's not just something that you preach, but in your voice, in your videos, in everything, and even be it whether we are rolling on the camera or not rolling on the camera, that humility is exuding in every conversation that there is from your end. Yeah. And I hope we did meet your expectations on this podcast.
Absolutely. To be fair, I was very excited about your questions. They're very precise and wonderful. I enjoyed it. I've had other podcasts where I felt a little uncomfortable, but this one is absolutely amazing. So all is good.
We are glad to do that.
We keep it as casual as possible, to be honest, Captain. That is the whole purpose, and the audience is someone joining the discussion. That is how we treat this podcast. We got the opportunity to spend some time with you. Right.
I appreciate it as well. Wonderful. Good. Then we will see each other in Mumbai, hopefully.
Yes.
So,
in all seriousness, whenever you have time, let us know.
for sure.
Yeah, she is on a maternity leave right now.
Oh, wonderful. Congrats. That's amazing.
Available.
Great. Okay, good.
Available for my schedule is quite relaxed right now, so I'm just here in Mumbai. Yeah.
I will get to Mumbai. Don't you worry. I'll be.
Yeah, for sure.
So next 6 months she is available. Probably last 2 months she might not be able to shoot.
I can. I'll have to wear a bit different clothes.
Great. Wonderful. Yeah. All right, so guys, then.
Yes. Thank you for your time, Captain.
So much.
My pleasure.
It was.
And namaste. And I will see you guys soon, hopefully.
Yes.
Thank you. It was our honor to have you.
It's absolutely
Right.
cool. Great.
Yeah.
All right.